Hello friends, good afternoon and welcome to EduSat Live Lectures. Dear friends, today in Indian Political Thought we will be talking about Gandhi and his idea of Swaraj. To discuss this topic we have with us our subject expert Dr. Manindranath Thakur. Dr. Thakur is Associate Professor in Center for Political Studies, School of Social Sciences, Jawaharlal Nehru University. Without further ado, I would like to welcome Sir to our studios and request him to start the lecture. Welcome, Sir.
Thank you, Amrit. We are going to talk about Gandhi's idea of Swaraj today and its relevance in the contemporary world. There are 3 points I will basically make. One is how to study Gandhi. I think that is one of the significant points that we have to keep in mind when we are approaching Gandhi. Then I'm using a new technique it's not new actually, it's quite an old technique taken from Indian intellectual tradition called creating a Purva Paksh and Uttar Paksh, and creating Gandhi's Purva Paksh and then see how Gandhi tried to construct his Uttar Paksh and what is the difference and how he could actually persuade people to follow his Uttar Paksh. And then Gandhi's new paradigm of political philosophy. That's what I will argue that Gandhi was capable of, and he actually did it, that he generated a new paradigm of politics which is becoming extremely relevant in today's world when we are seeing that the global economy is in crisis. The philosophy that emerged, which is called the modern philosophy 100 years back, that is in crisis. We are probably standing what Zizek calls end of time, at the end of time. So that end of time may be a beginning of a new time, and that is the new time is a Gandhian time. It looks like that. So let me first begin with the issue of how to study Gandhi. I think there are 2 prominent methods that has been used by 2 great philosophers, great political scientists. One is that people like Partha Chatterjee has examined how much Gandhi was indigenous, whether the nationalist discourse was indigenous discourse or it was a derivative discourse, it was derived discourse of the Western world. That is one of the issues, and Partha Chatterjee kind of thinkers try to look at Gandhi from this angle. How much was indigenous in Gandhi and how much was borrowed from the West? Is it that actually Gandhi was trying to translate the West for the Indian people? Scholars like Ernest Gellner argues that if you look at these ideas in the Indian thinking, modern Indian thinking, you will find that most of the ideas are so similar to the Western ideas that if you just change the name, if you hide the name, it would be difficult to differentiate between the ideas. Or you have Anderson, who argues that, well, there is an Indian ideology, people have not really examined the theories properly, and it's just a derivative discourse. So there is one debate about Desi and derivative, whether it's a Desi indigenous argument designed by Gandhi, or it was basically a new language that was being used to serve the old ideas of the West. Rudolf, for instance, argues that, well, there is a postmodern Gandhi, and Gandhi accessed other West, so he was critiquing West with the West only. So the point I want to bring home is that, well, there is a debate about whether it's indigenous or not, but this is not significant. I don't think it's a significant way of looking at Gandhi and engaging with Gandhi. The other approach is the modernity tradition approach. The Bhikkhu Parekh has argued that, well, there is a debate about whether we should adopt modernity in India or not, and this is the debate that was the defining character of Indian thought, including that of Gandhi. And he thinks that there are some traditionalists who rejected this modern idea completely. There were some modernists who rejected the traditional idea completely, and there were in between people called critical traditionalist or critical modernist. So he would put Gandhi in the critical traditionalist who would approach tradition with certain kind of criticality, and the criticality comes from the modernity. I think that even this approach to look at Gandhi from this angle of modernity and tradition doesn't give us insight in Gandhi's ideas. It's good for locating Gandhi in the debate on tradition and modernity, but that would not really allow us to access Gandhi as a political philosopher. I would like to propose a third paradigm, and the third paradigm I call the liberation paradigm of accessing Gandhi. If we treat Gandhi as a philosopher of liberation, and there are many philosophers of liberation, the philosopher of liberation aims at challenging the structures of domination. As there are many structures of domination in the world in different space and time, there are many philosophers who have in one way or other challenged these structures of domination. So people like Gandhi was capable of understanding the nature of the domination and also designing a strategy to fight against domination. So Gandhi, Ambedkar, Marx, these were the thinkers whom you put in the category of philosopher of liberation, whose concern was not liberation of a particular people located in particular space and time, but of course they were fighting for a specific cause. They were fighting against specific forms of a structure of domination, but their project definitely was a larger project of human liberation, and that too a universal human liberation. You have to acknowledge this idea that these thinkers were not narrow thinkers, they were not community thinkers. Of course they were fighting for at times the community which they belonged to, or the nation state within which they were located, or the class in which they were located, but definitely they were part of the larger project, or they had a larger project of human liberation, and this larger project of human liberation definitely is an unfinished project. You can easily imagine that every time you demolish a structure of domination, you will find some new structure of domination emerging, and then you have to think again how to fight against that. So it's a continuous process, so it's always an unfinished project. And from slavery to democracy, we have seen how many times human beings had to reject the existing ideas, how many times human beings had to counter the structures of domination, demolish them, and yet you find new structures of domination emerging. So the history of ideas of liberation is an unfinished history, and so these thinkers have contributed in the discourse of liberation, but the discourse itself is unfinished discourse. So every time, every moment, people have new responsibilities of creating new discourse. What we need to do is, we need to engage these thinkers in order to learn from them as to how do we create new philosophy of liberation, the new structures, to fight against new structures. We have to create new philosophies, and that is the target. That's how we should approach Gandhi. Not that whatever Gandhi said was always right, what he did was always right, but we have to look at the intention that Gandhi had, and we have to take that intention from Gandhi. And therefore I always argue that we have to learn from Gandhi the method of innovation, of new ideas. We have to be with the reality. We have to learn from Gandhi to be with the reality, to transform it. So one can easily say that readings of Gandhi through text may be a good way of reading Gandhi, but not the best way of reading Gandhi. Gandhi is not a textual philosopher who has only produced texts. Gandhi is a doer, so he is one of those thinkers about whom one can easily say that the duty of philosopher is not only to understand the world but to change it also. And Gandhi was involved in that change. So therefore, if we want to understand Gandhi, we have to understand Gandhi in process. He is an evolving thinker. Any thinker of liberation is an evolving thinker, because he or she is simultaneously struggling against a structure of domination while theorizing the struggle. Therefore, we have to really see both the things together. I think Gandhi was a creative thinker who was trying to evolve a new paradigm. He was negotiating with the tradition and modernity, no doubt about it. But the idea was not to be traditional or modern. The idea was to grow beyond that. Idea was to really negotiate with the resources available and create something new, something different. He had a utopia like any other thinker, like Marx or Ambedkar. He also had an utopia, and utopia was something that he wanted to push forward, and therefore he was constantly being creative about thinking, and the creativity came from his constant engagement with struggle. He was evolving a new paradigm of philosophy. We'll see what is this new paradigm of philosophy and why this new paradigm of philosophy is very relevant today. As I said, I will try to create Gandhi's Purvapaksh. The idea of the Purvapaksh is that what was Gandhi against when he was philosophizing? What did stand at that time as opposition to Gandhi, and how did Gandhi challenge them? I think the colonial power in India was definitely loaded with armory of modern philosophy, and the white man's burden, the white man's philosophy that was to be spread in order to civilize the world, that was the white man's burden, had certain kind of epistemology, and that epistemology was Gandhi's Purvapaksh. Gandhi wanted to challenge and demolish that epistemology. That we have to understand. The first thing in that was, of course, the Cartesian dualism. To simplify Cartesian dualism, I think we all know that Descartes was one of the philosophers of the modernity who differentiated between mind and the body. And the differentiation actually is so crucial to the modern civilization, to the modern thinking, that the mind became metaphysics, the study of mind, the study of feelings, emotions, that was reduced to metaphysics, and the study of concrete material world was materialism, a philosophy that became very popular. So this duality created a kind of detotalized ontology. So when you are trying to understand your society or the nature of social science, you can see, or sciences, you can see that in that objectivity became very important, that you have to have an objective knowledge, and therefore a new paradigm for objective knowledge was created by Descartes and further developed by Newton and others. What was this new paradigm of knowledge? The new paradigm of knowledge was based on what is called the Newtonian science. What was Newtonian science? That human beings have capacity to observe, and Galileo made this point after a long struggle. And the capacity to observe, they observe certain kind of regularity in nature, and once they see the regularity, they can develop a hypothesis, and the hypothesis has to be tested. You have to get evidences to say that hypothesis is right, and then once you find the hypothesis is correct, then you develop a theory. Now, this idea of observation, objectively analyzing observations, finding out a theory which has no role to play, in which human emotions have no role to play, that kind of knowledge was considered to be knowledge. Anything else was not knowledge. As a consequence, what happened? All other forms of knowledge were reduced to superstitions. So, the medical system in India, the Ayurveda system, if you compare the Ayurveda and allopathy, that is a basic difference. The epistemology, their epistemology is different, and therefore they reduced Ayurveda into non-knowledge, a superstition. You can look at the debates that was there in the early 19th century or mid 19th century about Ayurveda. You will find that it was being said that, well, this is not knowledge, this is not medical knowledge at all. It's only very late that people have accepted that as knowledge in India and abroad, but earlier it was reduced to superstition. So, any knowledge which does not follow this kind of epistemology becomes non-knowledge. That is the basic idea. So, this detotalized ontology has created a big problem, but I will come to the problem a little later on. But it differentiated between emotional being, psychological being, and the physical being, the biological being. It considered human beings merely as rational beings. We all know that human beings are not actually rational beings only, but then for all practical purposes, for the purpose of creating a knowledge or discussing about the human beings, this paradigm considered human beings mainly as rational human beings. The emotional part of human beings started being taken as something negative. Then about the nature, this paradigm is very anthropocentric paradigm, that human beings constitute the center of the universe, and therefore the whole nature has to be subservient to human being. So the idea of commanding the nature, idea of controlling the nature, appropriating the nature, exploiting the nature, this became a dominant idea. Again, we know that it has created a huge problem for us. The ecological imbalance is being created. We will come to that again when Gandhi responds to that. And then the last thing is that humans and the society, the individual and society, we create our society, but this paradigm thinks there is a conflict between individual interest and the social interest. What is good for society is bad for individual. That became the major idea. Now, if this is the idea, if this becomes the major philosophy, then for Gandhi the problem was how could such human beings be mobilized for any collective action, because this Purupaksh in nutshell was suggesting that we human beings are possessive individuals. We own our body, we own our capacity, we own everything that we have, and we have right to do anything with this. C.B. Macpherson has very beautifully analyzed the philosophy of possessive individualism, which was the philosophy of Hobbes, Locke kind of thinkers. For Gandhi, the problem was that if we are so self-centered human beings, then why should we go for collective action? Why should we fight for freedom? And we know that there is a possibility that during the fight we will be tortured or we may lose our life. So are we ready to fight for freedom for others by torturing ourselves? Now this was the question. So Gandhi created an Uttar Paksh, and he wanted to attack these philosophies. He wanted to, his main idea was to create a counter hegemony against this, so that he could mobilize people to change the system. A new philosophical paradigm could be created. Now, for his Uttar Paksh, Gandhi took four things, and there are four elements in fact, which he took from Indian intellectual tradition and created his own Uttar Paksha. The first thing, the idea from Sankhya philosophy, the Purusha and Prakriti, the idea of the multi-layered ontology, that human beings are not only body, not only mind, it's a body-mind continuum. We exist at ground zero with body and mind together, and then we can move outside and we can go into different layers of our existence, the family, the society, the nation state, the universe, the globe, the universe, and the infinity. And we can also simultaneously go inside ourselves, and there are layers of consciousness, and at some stage we merge with the infinity. Now getting to that infinity is the Purusha's character, and we become conscious of the Prakriti, of the nature, of the universe, of the reality. So our existence is multi-layered, and every human being has this kind of existence. So simultaneously we move from one layer to the other layer. The more layers we achieve, broader our viewpoint becomes. And Gandhi probably suggested that we have to constantly transcend ourselves from one layer to the other. So for Gandhi, Indian nation state was important, but more important was the humanity. More important was the infinity, the universe. So the idea that we are, as human beings, are multi-layered and we have capacity to transcend these layers is one thing that Gandhi took from Indian intellectual tradition. The second thing, there is a philosophy in Jainism called Anekantavad. So Gandhi took it from there, and at times Gandhi used to call himself Anekantavadi. What is Anekantavad? Anekantavad suggests that none of us can have complete knowledge of the reality. Reality is so complex that when we say we have the knowledge of reality, in fact we only have partial knowledge of reality. It depends from where are we seeing the reality, what is our vantage point. So everybody may be correct partially. Now this is a very significant departure. This philosophy emerged at a time when there was massive philosophical conflict in Indian society around 6th century or so. At that time, Anekantavad invited people to enter into a dialogue and suggested, look, probably all of us are claiming the complete knowledge of the reality or truth, but we all have only partial knowledge of reality. So there is a need to debate among ourselves and constantly grow in terms of knowledge. Now this is what Gandhi probably took from Anekantavad, and that is the source of his idea of satyagraha and non-violence. So he argued that, well, maybe I'm correct, maybe you are correct, and both of us need to enter into a dialogue, and the dialogue probably is not a predetermined process. It's almost Habermasian form of dialogue where both of us would agree that we want to arrive on a truth, and as long as we are convinced about our own knowledge of the truth, we would insist on that. But that insistence is not obsession. This insistence is a determination that probably the truth I know is correct. But the moment we discover that the viewpoint of others has an element of truth, our task is to immediately accept that, acknowledge that, and grow further. So this is the idea that he took from Anekantavad. So it was, in a way, idea of relative epistemology and an invitation for dialogue. The third thing is the Purusharth, idea of Purusharth and Vikar. Anthony Parel, in a text on Gandhi, suggests that, and rightly so, that Gandhi based his philosophy or understanding of society on the idea of Purusharth. I would suggest that Parel probably missed the point that Gandhi not only thought of Purusharths but also of Vikars, and he was trying to understand the relation between Purusharths and Vikars. What is Purusharths? As we know that there are four elements of Purusharths: Arth, Kam, Dharma, Moksha. Arth is human beings' dependence on nature. So Gandhi countered the previous or the Purupaksh by suggesting that human beings, along with other living beings, are dependent on nature for their survival. Therefore, it's not the command or it's not the appropriation of nature, but surviving with nature is important. We must respect the nature. We cannot take more than what we need. We should not take more than what we need. He said, if nature has enough for need, everybody's need, but not for greed. Very significant, redefining the relationship between human beings and the nature. Similarly, Kam is the biological need of human being, and the emotions, feelings emerging of biological being. And Gandhi was very conscious about it. So every time he thought, probably, we need to engage with other human beings. Respecting other human beings is important, dignity of other human beings is important, but then we have to understand that we are dependent beings, and dharma is the knowledge of law of nature, the law of nature to be followed. So Gandhi always argued that we have to live like a being in the nature. We have to follow the rules of the nature. We do not to defy that. Defiance of the law of nature will make nature very angry. And the final is the moksha, the being conscious of the consciousness. So Gandhi was always arguing that you must meditate, you must get into prarthana sabha, so that you become conscious of what you are thinking. I think this is Gandhi's main idea of Purusharth. And the Vikar, he thinks that Vikar has to be controlled, Purusharth has to be enhanced. A good society is one that controls the Vikar and enhances the Purusharths. And the last element that he took is Prayaschit, that it is the individual's responsibility to judge what is right, what is wrong, and then if he has done something wrong, he must accept it. He must acknowledge that, and he should do the Prayaschit. This, I think, makes Gandhi very different than other thinkers who basically thought that it is the role of the state to control human beings. So Gandhi's Purupaksh is a powerful Purupaksh that challenged the Uttarpaksh, and that makes Gandhi very important. That made Gandhi very important. Gandhi has generally been explored as a person, and he has not been generally explored as a philosopher. I think we need to explore Gandhi as a political philosopher and as a philosopher of liberation. And Gandhi for the contemporary world, not Gandhi for colonial India, Gandhi for the contemporary world. And Gandhi for contemporary world is beyond liberalism and Marxism. Somebody asked a question whether to a political philosopher in India called Gandhir Singh, is Gandhi a liberal, is Gandhi a Marxist, is Gandhi relevant? He said, Gandhi is neither a liberal nor a Marxist, therefore very relevant today. And that is Gandhi's relevance for the contemporary world. What we need to explore, how did Gandhi use this Purupaksh to construct an alternative philosophy of Swaraj. Swaraj is the key word that Gandhi gave, and Swaraj again is not a single definable concept, it is a multi-layered concept, and many layers were explored by Gandhi, many layers are yet to be explored in the contemporary world. But Swaraj is the key to Gandhi's idea of reconstituting the society and reconstructing the world. Thank you. So let's talk about Gandhi's new paradigm of political philosophy. What is Gandhi's new paradigm of philosophy, of which the key term is Swaraj? So I will talk about various dimensions of Swaraj. As I think Gandhi's idea of Swaraj is a multi-layered concept, and many layers were explored by Gandhi. Some layers are yet to be explored, and every time when humanity will approach Gandhi, it will find that new layers are yet to be discovered. So for every structure of domination, the idea of Swaraj may have new things to suggest. So let me see, what does Swaraj mean and what are the layers of Swaraj? A few layers I can mention. Gandhi's idea of Swaraj in ideas, Swaraj and the self, Swaraj in the economy, Swaraj in polity. I'll just discuss these few, but there could be many more. Let me first take Gandhi's idea of Swaraj's basic context. Of course, the basic context of Gandhi's idea of Swaraj is colonialism, and therefore, when we say Swaraj, we generally mean that Swaraj from the colonial power, and that's what people thought the Hind Swaraj was about. That Hind Swaraj was a manifesto for fighting against colonialism, and getting Swaraj means the autonomy, freedom for a sovereign nation state. That is the general theory, but there is a problem in this. That is only one layer of Swaraj. Of course, human beings living in a particular geographical area, they need to have a certain kind of sovereignty depending on the geographical boundaries and the idea of the nationhood and the nationality and all. So this is a complex question. I am not going to take it up at the moment, but definitely one society should not be controlled by other society by any means. The resources of one society should not be appropriated by other society. That is colonialism. So Gandhi's first layer of Gandhi's Swaraj was Swaraj from colonialism. But Gandhi has a general theory of Swaraj. A general theory of Swaraj is a multi-layered concept, as I said. And I will talk about the contemporary relevance of this idea in the context of the global crisis of philosophy and growing violence under the capitalist economy, the contemporary capitalist neoliberal regime. So Gandhi's idea of Swaraj is extremely important, I will argue, in the context of the contemporary neoliberal regime, and new dimensions of Swaraj need to be explored in this regime. Let me first think Gandhi's formulation of Swaraj in ideas. I think this is most significant point that Gandhi is making, that every society in the process of evolution has accumulated certain kind of knowledge about the nature, about self, and about society. Certain kind of practices, values, certain kind of undefined or defined knowledge system it has created. As a social scientist, Gandhi, after coming back from Europe, what he did first, he traveled throughout the country to understand the collective consciousness of the society, the community. He wanted to know how this community has constituted itself, how it has survived for long, what are the basic points through which it reproduces itself. And in that context, it is important that one has to reach to one's own ideas the society has produced, ideas through which society has reproduced itself. And Gandhi found some of them very interesting. One, that he emphasized on the consciousness of the human being, the idea of the Swaraj in ideas, that you are capable of and you must generate your own ideas. You must not follow others blindly. So how can I generate my own ideas? I am a common man. Gandhi would say, just because you are a human being, you have this capacity to generate new ideas. You have your conscience, which can tell you what is right, what is wrong. And the ideas that you generate for yourself is your ideas. You must follow that. You can struggle to understand the world, but your understanding is the most important thing for you, but that's what will guide you. You can engage with others, you can negotiate with others, keep the windows open, let the fresh air come. Let us debate about things. Don't be fixed about your ideas. We are constantly evolving by debating about the ideas. So our knowledge will grow. But whatever you are thinking as right at the moment, whatever you think, the knowledge that you have acquired is very important for you. And you have the conscience to really do that. And this actually empowers every human being, every individual actually, for critical thinking. And that critical thinking is Swaraj in ideas. So I am not dominated by anybody. I am not following anybody blindly. I am not copying others' ideas. I am engaging with others and generating my own ideas. I have the capacity to have judgmental rationality. I can judge what is good, what is bad. I can judge what is right, what is wrong. And how can I judge it? He says, you must hear to your soul. So once we do this, we generate new ideas and we engage with others' ideas. We are not closed-minded, very open mind, but firmly grounded in our own critical thinking. That's Swaraj in ideas. K.C. Bhattacharya wrote about it after some time. And if you look at the writings of many of the literary writers at the time, be it Premchand or Hazare Prasad Dwivedi and others, you will find there is a Gandhi present in their writings. Even in English writers like Mulk Raz Anand, you will find there is a Gandhi present there, and always constantly reminding that you have to generate your own ideas, the new ideas, and you have to decide about right and wrong. Then Gandhi talks about the Swaraj of the self and the self-rule. The self-rule is not merely freedom within quote of the nation state. It's the freedom of the self also. The self for Gandhi is a creative self, not the obsessive self. It's a relational self. That it's a species self, that we as human beings are existing in this world, not for ourselves, but for others. We are because you are. You are, therefore I am. This is the idea. So myself is a self for others. What Gandhi talks about, seva. Seva is the term through which Gandhi constitutes the self. And that self, if you can access yourself, then you will transcend the dichotomy of the individual and society. If you treat seva as your main concern, as your main mode of being, when you are relational, you are engaging with other, then you are actually creating a new society constantly. So accessing the self and Swaraj of the self is extremely important for Gandhi. That you purify yourself, you get rid of dominations of all kinds and access your innermost self. And that innermost self is definitely human self. And if you access that, you can create democracy, you can create a society which can be non-dichotomous society. Then Gandhi talks about Swaraj in economy, which everybody knows about him, that Gandhi was actually great advocate of small-scale industries. He thought small is beautiful. The village economy. For Gandhi, the village economy was not the traditional village, but it was self-sufficient villages. Transforming these old villages into a new village which is more democratic, which is more engaged village and having self-sufficiency, so it is not dependent on the market. It doesn't exploit the nature, but it engages with nature. It takes the nature as a natural habitation. The economy, of course, is not with big industries. He was against big industries. He was aware of the problems of the big industries, the giant machines. He was aware of that. The most important problem was with the machines. Gradually, it would actually make many people unemployed, and that's what's happening today. So he was for labor-intensive economy, where human beings must work with their hands, and working with the hand is not only due to the fact that you have more hands and we don't want to see people unemployed, but working with hands for Gandhi was a philosophical issue. Working with hand was important for creative self. Non-alienated human beings, for non-alienated human beings, working with hand was extremely important. And then Gandhi was challenging through his new paradigm the most important and most powerful contemporary economic structure, that is capitalism, and its friend market. Market and capitalism. Gandhi was against that. Gandhi thought the logic of the market was so powerful that it would actually subsume all human relationships. It's a profit-making relationship. So Gandhi was against the market. And market in capitalist sense, not in the traditional sense. Market in the capitalist sense is a relationship. Capitalism is relationship of exploitation. Capitalism has a worldview, that is the Purv Paksh of Gandhi. And he challenges capitalism by initiating new processes of economy. Charkha was one of them, but Charkha is symbolic. The main idea is that all human beings must work themselves for things they need. They must produce things they need, and if they can produce more than that, there's a barter and people can exchange. So one can always say that Gandhi could not understand capitalism fairly well, the power of capitalism. One can say that, but if you read Gandhi in his latter phase, you will find that Gandhi was worried about capitalism. And he was worried about the violence that capitalism was producing, the violence of all kinds, invisible and visible. So Gandhi thought that if we have Swaraj in economy, we can have a democratic society, we can have a non-violent society. And Swaraj in polity. He was a great critique of the modern political institutions. For instance, he was very much convinced that the parliament system and the party system were not the best institutions for democracy. He could see that the logic of the parliament system and the party system was the same which was there for market. So it was a market democracy almost. So the trust factor was missing in that, and therefore Gandhi suggested that we should have an alternative formulation. And he thought that there could be a series of representative bodies growing from bottom to top. And that was important, that you have the center of power is not the most powerful building called parliament. The center of power should be in the villages, beginning from the individual and then growing into communities and finally reaching to the highest level of representation. But the power should move from top to bottom, not from bottom to top. One of the ways of doing that, of course, was Panchayati Raj, but not the form of Panchayati Raj that we have today. Today's Panchayati Raj is a delivery mechanism. It is not the representative body. That's altogether a different story, why Panchayati Raj was exactly introduced at a time when the economy was being globalized. Gandhi was not for globalized economy, was for localized economy and localized power relationships. It was easy to handle that for a democratic society. But gradually what we have seen, what has happened, is that power is centered at the top as the economy is centered at the top, and therefore Gandhi's new paradigm of thinking, the Uttar Paksh that Gandhi created, has become extremely relevant even today. The unfinished project of human liberation that Gandhi is part of has to move on, and in that moving on it has to appropriate things from Gandhi. Gandhi has to be seen as a philosopher of liberation. We have to rethink Gandhi in the contemporary times, in the times when violence is becoming the order of the day. Human beings have developed instruments of mass killing, and if we don't have what Gandhi says, the politics of unconditional love, we will destroy the humanity. So Gandhi's new paradigm, of which Swaraj is at the center, is a paradigm that today we have to access and develop further. Thank you very much.
Okay, sir. Sir, I have a few questions regarding this conceptualization. So, what do you think would be the role for the capitalist in Gandhi's system of Swaraj?
See, Gandhi thought of capitalists as trustees. Everybody who has acquired resources from the nature more than one needs, he cannot own that nature. It's not a private property. He or she can only be a trustee of that resource. And once you are trustee of the resource, then you cannot appropriate more than you need. So you are trustee because you are supposed to develop it further for society, for humanity. So for him, capitalist would be just a trustee. Now one can say that Gandhi could not understand capitalism and the nature of capitalists, but that's a point of debate now.
But in that sense, when Gandhi assumes that a capitalist or the one who owns the capital has to act as a trustee, he's foreseeing the better nature of the capitalist, or what we can say corporate social responsibility today, that it's kind of responsibility for those to have a social responsibility of people around them, especially the poor, if they have attained financial gains from the same society. So won't you agree that in that sense that Gandhi is foreseeing all these things?
I don't think that a corporate social responsibility is something that Gandhi is talking about, because I think the moment you talk corporate social responsibility, that would mean that only few % of the resource one has to spend on society, right? Gandhi says that only few % of the resource that you should take from the capital and rest is for society. Are you getting my point?
Yes.
Now what's happening is we are taking income tax from the corporate. So what is income tax? 30%. Gandhi would say it's only 30% that you should get. 70% should belong to society. You don't have any income additional. You should not take more than what you need. And rest you develop the resources, yes, rest you develop the social institutions and all. Therefore, corporate social responsibility is a typical corporate strategy to have fund for managing social relationships, which is important for survival of capitalism.
Okay, so sir, in terms of this whole conceptualization of Swaraj, what one feels is underdeveloped is the social relationships. How Gandhi addresses this issue. There is this concept of concentric circles that Gandhi gives. How do you see Gandhi develop social relationships in terms of Swaraj or in terms of a decentralized polity or a political system?
See, Gandhi's idea that if you become a creative self, then definitely you will become a better human being. If you are a better human being, your social relationship is much better. And of course, Gandhi therefore was not somebody who would accept the unequal social relationships existing. Some people think that Gandhi probably was justifying the caste system, the unequal social relationship existing. I think it's not true. What Gandhi was trying to suggest that these things cannot be abolished by state. We have to transform ourselves in order to have an egalitarian social relationship. That was his project. Therefore, he started with the self. He started with transforming oneself. Unless we do that, our relationship can't be really very egalitarian. So I think Gandhi's main concern was how do you create a society of creative selves and allow them to engage with each other.
Okay, so in that sense, if we conceptualize again it in concentric circles theory, then it's individual and then his family, then society, then the nation at large. That's how that also addresses the kind of panchayati system Gandhi would have imagined. Gandhi actually imagined, because in those senses, panchayat, which is self-autonomous, there are a number of panchayats, and that's what makes us a state for him, a decentralized political system.
Yeah, so you have various layers of representation. At one layer, you are local units representing some people. Then that unit creates a larger unit, and like that. So what happens in that is that everybody is represented now. At the moment, what's happening in the party system today, that 49% people have voted against, 51% people have voted for somebody. Now, the person who is elected can never imagine of himself or herself as representative of 100%. He or she will only work for 51%. That's Gandhi's problem. That you are not really then creating a harmonious society. And that we are seeing today what's happening because of this kind of representation. Because we are leading towards majoritarianism. That was Gandhi's fear, that in India it would be possible that we lead towards majoritarianism and minority will suffer. So Gandhi was thinking that probably in this process of decision making, we empower the bottom the most, and then it grows further. So decision making starts from there. Very close to what you call democratic centralism. A big difference that there is no centralism in this. In this case, it is basically more power at the bottom, and then gradually empowering for few decisions that has to be taken at the larger level to the upper layer, and continuous engagement with each layer.
So in that sense, power flows from individual to polity.
Yes, right.
That's right. You empower the person, and then
right.
Assuming that he has attained Ram Rajya, Swaraj within himself.
Exactly.
Within himself, and then
he's a creative self.
That's how he goes.
He becomes, then he creates a larger unit, and then a larger unit.
Informed person.
Absolutely. Informed, and not only informed, humanitarian person. A creative self who thinks that Your existence is more important than my existence. I am there because you are there. I survive by doing seva. It's a relational human being, not obsessive self that whatever I have I must keep within myself and I must actually control everything. It's not a control freak individual.
Okay, on that note, I would like to thank sir for this very enriching discussion, and thank you dear friends for watching our show. Stay tuned and keep watching. Thank you.